We will be taking up from the para beginning with even if the truth of our being were a thing less sublime. Well, if you remember, in the previous paragraph we were actually being given the description and the status of the soul, and as I said, most of this half the paragraph is but a translation of the verses from the Gita, mostly chapter 2, verses 16 to 25. And of course this is a concept, of course, also given in the Upanishads about the immortality of the soul. And the Gita, of course, puts it a little more dramatically, if I may say so, when it says about that weapons cannot cleave it, nor the fire burn, nor do the waters drench it, nor the winds dry. However, it is giving us a very high and vast and sublime image of the immortality of the soul. Coming to this new para, even if the truth of our being were a thing less sublime, vast, intangible, by death and life, if the self were constantly subject to birth and death, still the death of beings ought not to be a cause of sorrow. For that is an inevitable circumstance of the soul's self-manifestation. Its birth is an appearing out of some state in which it is not non-existent but unmanifest to our mortal senses. Its death is a return to that unmanifest world or condition, and out of it will again appear in the physical manifestation. Well, here, of course, as you can see, he is giving us a different argument. That supposing the soul is really not that sublime that it is, immortal and it cannot be killed, it cannot be, made, the fire cannot destroy it, etc., that it is unborn, ancient, sempiternal. Supposing that the soul really comes into birth with every time it takes a body. See the difference. The previous one was that it is unborn, ancient and sempiternal. That means it can never die. But he says even if it were to really die in the sense that it takes only one body at a time and then goes back, then he says his birth is an appearing out of some state in which it is not non-existent but unmanifest. So supposing it comes from the Ananda Loka or whatever the level of the soul. From that level it comes, takes a body upon earth, lives for a while, leaves the body and goes back to Ananda Loka. This is only a supposition, it's not the truth there. But he's just taking an argument for the sake of the argument. So his death is a return to that unmanifest world or condition, and out of it, it will again appear in the physical manifestation. So that is not the death of the soul. It is only, it will leave the body and it will go back. The to-do made by the physical mind and senses about death and the horror of death, whether on the sick bed or the battlefield, is the most ignorant of nervous clamors. So what Lord Krishna is telling us is, even if you do not know about this mystery of the soul and all that, even then, to really be afraid, to be nervous about death, by the physical mind and senses about death. See, he uses a very fine description about the physical mind and the senses. What is afraid of death? Which is really full of sorrow? It is the physical mind. And the senses. Of course, the senses, he has a poem where he says, the culling of the rose, there's a beautiful rose, and when it is cut, so we feel very bad when we want to cut a beautiful fresh rose. So death for us is like that, it comes and cuts our life. For example, a young man is there, a bubbling person, full of life. And suddenly if he or she is taken off, we feel, my God, what a cruel thing is this death, that it has cut the life of this young person. So there what happens is more our senses get the shock. And it is our physical mind which really gives all this kind of an explanation that you see, it is a cruel thing, it is a bad thing, it is, in fact, if I want to summarize, it is this way, that it is more our outer nature which gets this shock of death than really our deeper self. So what is important is more the outer being, outer mind of man which gets the shock of death. Because you see, when anyone dies in our family, the mind and the feelings, they are hurt, they are in sorrow, but the life energy, the rhythm of life is so great that, it continues afterwards. Death of the person, the beloved one, becomes a kind of a tragic memory. But our basic life continues. People come back to laughter, come back to joy, come back to seeing movies, going to parties. A thing that you would think, oh my God, if this person goes away, I'll never be able to come back to life. I'll be in sorrow for the rest of my life. But I've seen people jump back to life sooner or later, depending on some circumstance and time. But the wave of life takes over. So what Aurobindo indicates here is that the spirit of life is greater than the spirit of death. No death can ever stop the wave of life. So he wants to tell us it is the outer life, outer mind, the physical mind, which feels the horror of death, whether on the sick bed or the battlefield, is the most ignorant of nervous clamors. Our sorrow for the death of men is an ignorant grieving for those for whom there is no cause to grieve, since they have neither gone out of existence nor suffered any painful or terrible change of condition, but are beyond death no less in being and no more unhappy in that circumstance than in life. Well, here we have again another argument. So first of all, he said that it is more the outer physical mind which feels the shock of death. So the shock that we feel, the horror that we feel, is more on the surface level. Secondly, he says, we should not be really having sorrow for the death of men. The reason is they have neither gone out of existence nor suffered any painful or terrible change of condition. Well, first of all, let me put another idea here. That is, if someone has gone away, under this normal circumstances, not out of a brutal accident or something, those are unholy things, really we can't think of that. But normally somebody in the sick bed, somebody is the old age, somebody some diseases. Or even somebody pretty young and out of no apparent reason if he or she goes away. Basically, it is the decision of the soul, fundamentally. And if you realize that, there is no cause for sorrow. At least, there are dozens of cases in the ashram that we have seen, and where the mother herself said this is what has happened. He or she has gone away because the soul decided. You see, when I was young, we were in the group in the sense physical activities. We had not a group mate, but another group, a ladies group in fact. Normally in the ashram physical activities, before the activities begin, we stand in a line and then we concentrate and then we go to the activities. And at the end of the activities, we again stand in line, again we thank the mother and disperse. So this group of ladies on that day, they stood in the line, prayed, etc., and they went to in the swimming pool in the ashram, sports ground. And when they re-met, again made a line, the captain of the group noticed that this lady was missing. Normally, it's absolutely a discipline that no one should miss this line. So then they suspected something and then they went back to, say, ladies' toilet, bathrooms there, thinking that maybe she's still taking bath or getting ready. But then they found that her towel, etc., was still in the bathroom. So they got a bit panicky and went into the swimming pool. Apparently there was no one swimming, but unfortunately they found a body down the swimming pool, at the bottom of the swimming pool. And so, of course, they were a little panicked and people went down, dived in and brought up the body, etc. But the amazing thing was, of course, at the time the mother was there, it was reported to her. Well, she said, it's the soul which decided to leave the body in the quickest manner possible. So this girl came out of the swimming pool, went into the ladies' toilet. The rule is first we have to take a shower before we go out of the swimming pool. So she took the shower, went back into her toilet and ladies' toilet, and then she came back. And normally it is a rule that when we quit the swimming pool, we have to sign in and sign out. So there was also the signature of her signing out. So there was all the proof that she had left the swimming pool, she had gone away, but yet the body was there. How come? Then what happened, that's the missing thing was, that she had come back and she almost jumped into the swimming pool. Not that she did not know swimming, she was a good swimmer. So the mother, then she explained, this is what happened, and because her soul had decided to leave the earth the quickest manner possible. Maybe because she was young, the heart attack was not there, so the simple thing was she jumped into the water. Into the same swimming pool where she had swam 10 minutes before, all very well. And there was another case also, one of my own group mates, we go on an annual picnic, and at that time I wasn't there, maybe I left the group by then. There is a place, Jinji Fort or somewhere, and we normally go there. And there's a big pool, a natural small pool amongst the rocks. And every young man in the ashram knows swimming. So they all jumped into that, there's a swimming up and down and this and this. And the same thing happened at the end of the day, they see the person missing. And they really went back, and it's not a big pool, maybe it is as big as this Sakar place. So it's not that impossible not to look into it. So they really dived in, dived here, dived there, but the body also not found anywhere. So of course next day the matter went to the mother. They said, Mother, we can't even find the body. So she said, bring me a photograph of the lake or the pond. When the photos were brought, she said, look here. She spotted the place. So of course next day they straight went to the spot. They found the body, it was hidden under a rock, and the body had really got stuck in a rock. So people could not see from above, only she could see. And same thing. She said the boy knew very well the swimming, but it's just that the soul said, well, I'm quitting, and right in the middle of the waters, it left the body. So there have been umpteen number of cases where she herself explained. In fact, there was one gentleman who used to see her every time she went to the tennis ground to play tennis. And after the game was over, he would dive into the sea, have a little fresh bath and swim for half an hour and then go back home. Well, that evening, he died in the sea. And mother later said, yes, when he came to me to do the last pranam, I knew today his soul is going to go. But she wouldn't say, hey, don't go to the swimming pool, don't go to the sea, you will die. If he didn't go to the sea, he would be maybe come under a car or fall off the wall or anywhere. So that is what we have come to know very concretely. 95% of the cases are really decisions where the soul dies. So it's the soul decides. And apparently we think, it's an accident, it's a doctor's mistake, if the oxygen was there 3 minutes before. All that is our human interpretation and maybe consolation. But actually, except in the war or when there is a calamity and suddenly there's an earthquake and a tsunami. But there too, mother says, in 50% of the cases, there is a massive death that is also predestined. You see, in the tsunami, why is it that this part did not die and that part they died? So there is what she says, there's a massive death. Sometimes there are train accidents, then there are flights which really fall. But out of the 150 passengers, maybe 3 passengers have survived. So you see, how does it happen? Because there is the question of a collective death. But if those 3 souls have decided not to live, it may be a plane crash or a train crash or a tsunami, they will survive. Because their soul said, no, I don't want to live. So they may be injured, a backbone broken, a leg broken or whatever. So you see, this is the understanding with which we have grown up. The idea I want to tell you is, each time in the ashram, we were given this kind of a knowledge of death. So subsequently what happened? Not subsequently. Then as we grew up, we have seen our own teachers go away, our own colleagues go away, some of them are very close friends. But never is there any tear in the physical mind or what Aurobindo calls the senses. They do not fear. There is no sorrow. Of course, we go and pay our homage, like it happened latest with Dr. Natkani's death. Yes, I was there all through and I knew. People say, it was the heart, it was whatever the external reasons. So basically what we have to understand is our sorrow for the death of men is an ignorant grieving. Ignorant grieving because we think of all those things. But if you know the truth, why should you grieve? So that's number one. And secondly, what Aurobindo is giving here, grieving for those for whom there is no cause to grieve, because since they have neither gone out of existence nor suffered any painful or terrible change of condition. You see, the soul has not gone out of existence. That means it has only shed its body, but the soul itself is not dead. It is there perennially. And just this morning I was reading something for the mother, for my talk in Aurobindo. But the mother says it is the same soul that comes and it is the same formation. It comes birth after birth to improve itself. So it is not that something has left or something is gone out of existence forever. So she says we should not have any cause, and the person who has departed, maybe he is in a better condition than he was in this world. Say if you are suffering from sorrow, suffering some kind of a disease and pain, after he left the body, maybe he is in a better state. At least, that's what had happened to my father. He was in a terrible state of physical pain. So the family went and prayed to the mother, please take him away. At least he would be beyond this physical torture. And so it happened, within 12 hours, he was taken away. So that's what Sri Aurobindo is telling, that there may be, but are beyond death no less in being and no more unhappy in the circumstance than in life. But in reality, the higher truth is the real truth. Now, he is getting deeper into philosophy, where he says, all are that self, that one, that divine whom we look on and speak and hear of as the wonderful beyond our comprehension. For after all our seeking and declaring of knowledge and learning from those who have knowledge, no human mind has ever known this absolute. Now this is, of course, he is getting into Vedanta, that all are that self, that one, that divine whom we look on and speak and hear of as the wonderful beyond our comprehension. Well, that is the Vedantic approach, that here or there, in body or without body, is a simple, straightforward, the Supreme One. That is the condition which we really speak of, where everything is the one single Supreme. So there is, like saying, there is this story that once some ministers went to a king and they said, O Lord, thou art greater than God himself. The king was flattered. He said, why do you say that? How can I be greater than God? Well, they said, Lord, you can banish somebody from your kingdom. But what can poor God do? He cannot banish anybody from his kingdom. So that is that Lord. Because for God, the whole world is the kingdom. I cannot say go away from India to Russia, from Russia to back to this country. So you say, this is that kingdom of God. He is here, he is there, he is up, he is here. Because the whole world is within himself. So he says that everything is within. So the wonderful beyond our comprehension. For after all our seeking and declaring of knowledge and learning, who have knowledge, no human mind has ever known this absolute. So this question of having the knowledge of the full absolute is not possible. We as human beings can have partial knowledge, but absolute knowledge of the absolute is out of question. It is this which is here veiled by the world, the master of the body. All life is only its shadow, the coming of the soul into physical manifestation, and our passing out of it by death is only one of its minor movements. See, we have to see this immense totality of this life. When we see, for example, especially in the countries where there is a lot of snow, you see what happens, the tree apparently dies. There's nothing, I've seen sometimes in Europe, in winter the tree is completely black, not a twig, not a leaf, nothing, just a little skeleton, all black, and you think it's all dead. But with the first sun ray of the spring, you see again the springing in of new life. Where was that life? It is always hidden, it is only in a different manifest mode. So what Sri Aurobindo is telling us, this winter and spring and autumn and all that, the seasons change. But we know when the winter has come, spring also will come. That when winter, we don't think that the tree is completely dead, although it may seem to be dead. Now by watching nature we have come to know nothing is dead. Those green leaves and beautiful twigs have gone into a little shrinking mode. And then when the spring comes, new leaves come, the tree again is born. So what Aurobindo is telling us, all this is a gigantic movement of withdrawal and a movement of self-expression. So this withdrawal is called the death and expression is called life. So he's saying, why are we really in this condition trying to be mournful? So he says, when we have known ourselves as this, then to speak of ourselves as slayer or slain is an absurdity. You see the logic here, that we cannot say we have been killed or we are dead. It is that which takes this form, has taken it back, shrunk it. Like again getting back to the image of the tree. The tree in spring has really given maybe for 1 million leaves. It has expressed itself in such a beautiful manner. But when winter comes, all these leaves it has shed off and only taken that kind of a mute energy, not self-expressive. So similarly our soul, it takes a form, it's there for one winter, one summer, one spring, one summer, one autumn. And then the soul withdraws all this energy. So that energy which has gone into 1 million leaves is the same energy which gets back into itself, becomes what we say the static energy. So ultimately we will see, that's what I'm telling you from the Life Divine, that there is this energy at rest and energy at expression. So energy at rest is called death and energy in expression is called life. But it says it's the same energy which is perennially there. One thing only is the truth in which we have to live. The eternal manifesting itself as the soul of man in the great cycle of its pilgrimage with birth and death for milestones, with worlds beyond as resting places, with all the circumstances of life, happy or unhappy, as the means of our progress and battle and victory, and with immortality as the home to which the soul travels. Well, this is the sum and substance of our life journey, that all our really birth and death are the milestones of the journey of the soul. You see, journey of the soul is not really limited to this one single birth. Its journey has begun way back, 50,000 births back maybe. But you see, each time it comes, one birth, one death is one milestone. And so each time it puts a peg and says, okay, I was there as Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, as if kind of puts a peg in its journey and goes on. So what he's saying is our life, our earth is the journeying place. Then the life beyond is his resting place. You see, every pilgrim has to have both. That he walks on the road and he rests on the road. So no pilgrim keeps on walking eternally. So the soul walks for 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 30 years, 40 years. And then it says, now let me rest. And then it says, the worlds above are beyond our resting places, and the circumstances of life are happy or unhappy as a means of our progress. And battle and victory, and with immortality as the home to which the soul travels. Now this third level is where most of us are really bogged down. Circumstances which are happy or unhappy. But these are as means of our progress. You see, even in our normal journey, in a physical way, we have always sometimes things which we look forward to. Says, hey, I must achieve this, I must get this, I must buy that, I must do this. There are what we call the short-term goals. But sometimes we don't achieve these short-term goals. And yet there are circumstances which change, and we say, no, all right, I could not achieve that, I'll take another one. So there are all these circumstances are helping us to move forward. Otherwise, if I don't have an aim, a goal, an ambition, or somewhere to reach, then I may become a little tamasic and, sit in one place and it says, I have nothing much to do. You see, what really kills the persons who are retired is this sense of nothing much to do. Not really the age. Because you see, as the mother explained very often, the sense that my work is complete is the beginning of the coming in of death. So one should never think my work is done. We should always have this kind of no, I have one more milestone to go, I have one more mile to cover. So this keeps you moving forward. Well, you will say, the ages keep adding, that's true. But age is not necessarily connected to death. You may be 103 years and still look out our Amal Kiran, I don't think he will ever think of death. Well, a couple of times somebody asked him, Amal, you're thinking you want to die? Amal said, yes, I want to die. People were surprised that Amal Kiran saying, what has happened? He says, yes, I want to dye my hair. A man of 102 years, he still has a sense of humor. He says, I want to dye my hair. I'm not thinking of death. Whoever said that? That's the spirit. You say, dye your hair means what? You want to look young and be young and want to go forward. So that's it. It's not the question of age. It's not the question of adding years. It's a question of your mind saying, my work is done. I have nothing more. So you see, whatever may be your decision, your soul's decision, but the fact of the body saying, I have nothing more to achieve, makes the body older, not only older in age, but this whole organ, the mind, the whole system kind of, grinds to a halt. And the more it grinds to a halt, it becomes a hindrance for the soul's expression. So the soul says, wow, look at this body, is not even helping me to experience anything. So why should I keep this body? So it may leave. So if you have kept the body nice and good and alert and energetic, the soul may say, well, the body is really giving me service, I'll use it for longer. So it will not leave it necessarily early. So there are all kinds of things. What we are saying is not the only way, but these are ways. Different ways of looking at it. So these are all means of our progress. And of course, on the spiritual sadhana level, every circumstance becomes a means for inner progress. That we don't have to tell. We have talked about it. But I'll not bring that into picture now. Therefore, says the teacher, put away this vain sorrow and shrinking. Fight, O son of Bharata. But wherefore such a conclusion? This high and great knowledge, this strenuous self-discipline of the mind and soul, by which it is to rise beyond the clamor of the emotions and the cheat of the senses to true self-knowledge, may well free us from grief and delusion. It may well cure us of the fear of death and the sorrow for the dead. It may well show us that those whom we speak of as dead are not dead at all, not to be sorrowed for, since they have only gone beyond. It may well teach us to look undisturbed upon the most terrible assaults of life and upon the death of the body as a trifle. It may exalt us to the conception of all life circumstances as a manifestation of the One, and as a means for our souls to rise themselves above appearances by an upward evolution until we know ourselves as the immortal spirit. Well, as you see with each para, we are getting deeper and deeper into this question of life and death. But basically this is, Sri Aurobindo commenting based on Lord Krishna's teachings. And you can see some of these things are not there in the Bhagavad Gita. It's Sri Aurobindo who is bringing in the explanation. He says, this high and great knowledge, the strenuous self-discipline of the mind and soul by which it is to rise beyond the clamor of emotions, may well free us from the grief and delusion. Now it is this kind of a, Sri Aurobindo calls it strenuous self-discipline of the mind. It is a self-discipline, of course, to look at death in this manner, detached manner, thinking that there's no one dies and nothing is dead. It's only a question of change of state. So it can relieve us from grief and delusion. It may well cure us of the fear of death and the sorrow for the dead. You see, to cure us of the fear of death, he says, in fact, the Buddha would mention that there are 4 different ways to get out of this fear of death. One, she says, intellectually. For those who are thinkers and intellects and have a strong mind, you reason out what is death, what is life, like we are reasoning out here, that there's nothing really that goes out of existence. It is, death is something like somebody has gone beyond my sight. If somebody says right on the 3rd floor of Sakar, I can't see him, I can't hear him, we cannot communicate. But that fellow from up there, he is able to see me, but I'm not able to communicate. So I say, hey, he is dead and gone. But he's not dead and gone, he's just above there in that floor where he has gone out of your reach of communication. But if somebody is just there on the terrace of Sakar, I cannot say, he is dead and gone. He is out of my reach of communication. So he, instead of living on the ground floor, he lives on the 3rd floor. But his existence is still there. But now the only question is, because they left the body, the voice is not there, the eyes are not there to look into each other, the ears are not there. That is, the physical instrumentation of communication is not there. Otherwise his vital being is there, his mental being is there, his psychic being of course is there. So in fact they can communicate, they can understand our emotions. That's why, as often we told, that never to cry over the dead. Because vitally they are fully alive, except that they don't have the physical to touch you. Otherwise, when you're crying, they feel you're crying, they can hear you're crying, they can feel the pull of your crying, and that is a disaster for them. Because say if somebody is crying there and they say, hey, why are you crying? I go near and touch him and pat him and hug him and say, don't cry, I'm here for you. But the mother explained that vital being, it cannot come to you with a hand and say, hey, don't cry. So you are adding a kind of a double misery to that soul which has departed. One is that it doesn't have the body to communicate. Secondly, with your emotions you are putting greater, bond on this vital being. And you are not letting it go. So when we say, he's neither here nor there. It is better to be in one place. Either you are physically here in the physical place with your body, or you go into the vital plane. Because you have still the vital sheath is there, you are there in the vital plane. But if you pull him, what happens? He is neither in the vital plane nor in the physical plane, is hanging in between. So the departed soul is suffering more. So the mother says, don't cry, don't pull him emotionally. In fact, we should say, no, you have left the body, go. That means you have decided to go on and go on, fast forward. May you go to your Ananda Loka as quickly as possible, then I'll be happy. I'll pray to the mother, Ma, take this man to Ananda Loka as fast as possible. So our prayers to the divine to take this departed soul to its resting place is the best way we can help a departed soul. So that's what he's saying. Intellectually, if you have all this, you can take a positive view. Then if you are emotional, that means you are a bhakta. Then you say, no, all this world is the divine. After all, like many of the ashram people would say, oh, this person is dead and has gone to the mother. Because we are devotees of the mother, we say, oh, he has gone to the mother's feet. So we feel undisturbed. He says, after all, he was here with the mother and is there with the mother. So it's fine with me. So if you are a bhakta, you do that. Then she would say, if you are a yogi, then you know that there's nothing as here and there, before and after, that there's only one kind of a creation. There's only all one energy. It is like Lord Krishna says, taking one form, leaving one form. So there's a kind of a yogic understanding. However, there's a fourth one, I forget now. So there is this kind of an understanding by which you can get away from the fear of death. So it may well show us that those whom we speak of as dead are not dead at all, not to be sorrowed for, since they have only gone beyond. That's what I was explaining. They have gone beyond your reach. Nothing more. It may well teach us to look undisturbed upon the most terrible assaults of life and upon the death of the body as a trifle. So once, we have this kind of a attitude, then one of the greatest fears of life, which is the fear of death, I won't say so easily that we'll conquer it, but at least we'll not be that much affected that we get into deep depression or into vairagya and you say it's gone and I'm gone. That extreme emotional disturbance we could avoid if we have this kind of a knowledge. It may exalt us to the conception of all life circumstances as a manifestation of the One and as a means for our souls to raise themselves above appearances. So that's what I said. As a yogi, you say all this is one energy. Do you think when the ashram people died, Mother and Aurobindo were affected? No. It was as simple as news. Sometimes she would say, yes, I knew. The soul actually first came to me and then I said, Mother, I'm leaving the body. And it left. Sometimes Mother would say, you are leaving it too early, go back. I have some work for you. I think some other day I was telling you about Amrita. Amrita was one of those souls whose life was extended by 25 years. The soul had decided to leave, but Mother said, I have some more work. Please don't leave the body, go back. So sometimes you see that is one of the things, even if the soul wants to leave and the body is good state, Mother may say, hey boy, you have been doing good work and I want you to do more. So she may tell the soul to return, but to the body, but if the body is crumpled, full of disease, full of ailments, full of this thing, the soul may say, well, I can't do that. Once or twice she tried to do that with the body that had an accident. The soul wanted to stay on, but the body was too bad, too much, broken, and it could not go back. Mother tried to keep it here for a while and then send it back. It could not. So there are all circumstances possible. So he's saying here that this is how we may really see that all our souls, is a means for our souls to raise themselves above appearances by an upward evolution until we know ourselves as the immortal spirit. But how does it justify the action demanded of Arjuna and the slaughter of Kurukshetra? Now here, suddenly we seem to change the scene. We have talked about death, not to have this kind of an attitude, not to be surprised by this changing of the state of the body. But then Sri Aurobindo suddenly is bringing the question, how does all this justify the slaughter of Kurukshetra? But apparently it's quite incongruous. The way Aurobindo is explaining about the death and the suffering and all that. But he is bringing in the question of Kurukshetra because this is exactly what Arjuna had asked for. If you remember in the beginning, Arjuna said, all these people are going to be killed. And I don't want to kill them. So now Aurobindo is saying that death in Kurukshetra, how is it justified now? So the answer here is, that this is the action required of Arjuna in the path he has to travel. It has become inevitably in the performance of the function demanded of him by Swadharma, his social duty, the law of his life and the law of his being. Well, coming back to the first answer, what Lord Krishna gives, that now life or death is not to be looked into because you, O Arjuna, are a Kshatriya. And Kshatriya is not afraid of death, his own or others. He has been trained to kill and to be killed. So for him, this life and death are equal. So he's saying, why are you being philosophic now? You are a Kshatriya. Go ahead and do your duty. Nothing to think about. Then he says, this world, this manifestation of the self in the material universe is not only a cycle of inner development, but a field in which the external circumstances of life have to be accepted as an environment and an occasion for that development. Now here comes this whole approach that you will see is a very pragmatic approach. For once, Arjuna, the Kshatriya, was becoming a kind of a thinker, which he was not supposed to do in the battlefield. There you don't go into the battlefield and start thinking about, philosophy and Vedas and Upanishads. You're there to act, a man of action. So here is saying that in fact, that this field in which the external circumstances of life have to be accepted as an environment and an occasion for that development. So he's saying, look, this entire world is, of course, as we have said, is a journey of the soul. This entire worldly existence, creations, is continuously the soul is marching from birth to birth, acquiring whatever it has to acquire, experience and this and that. So that is a field of inner development, but also a field in which the external circumstances have to be accepted. Now you see, by your training, by your background, you are in the battlefield. So you have to accept the circumstance and not run away from it saying, no, my wife is waiting for me at home, my children are looking for me. You can't do that. Not only is it it's an ideal that goes against the Kshatriya, but maybe the divine has put you in these circumstances for your best inner growth. In fact, that is what we were told when we were in the ashram and the mother was there in the body, that whatever work she gave was for the individual the best way to progress inwardly. Maybe an artist she would put into the furniture shop, into the furniture department. Artist may say, hey mother, I wanted to really paint for 10 hours a day, you have put me in the furniture shop there. But externally, yes, it may be a jerk. But inwardly, that may be the best possible way for your inner growth. So what lot of these sadhaks of yore were given to understand and have also written in their memories that how they were expecting something different according to the so-called Sabhava. Like for example, our own Nirodha was a medical man, but he was put in for a while in the furniture shop there, department. So mother did not really go necessarily by your external thing, hey, if he's a lecturer, then put him in the school for all his life, then he can lecture and go forward. But maybe being a lecturer will bring you a greater ego. You may think you are the man of knowledge and you are getting to be a greater professor, a popular man, and your ego may boost, which may be a great hindrance to your sadhana. So she knows, so the lecturer may be put into a dining room. That's what our present dining room in charge is. He was a lecturer from Punjab, or I don't know which place. But when he came here for the first couple of years, he taught us. And I was a student. And he was the best teacher because he told us always stories. And children, they like only the storyteller. So he used to come and tell us, and I still remember, I don't know when it was, 1964, 34 years back, something, or 44 years back. He was the first one who told us the story of Amrit Manthan. And today in the morning, those who were there in the morning at Aurobindo, Manojda told you in 5 minutes about Amrit Manthan. But this gentleman told us a whole week. He would come every day, 40 minutes, he would tell the story, but the way he would describe the details and the demon side and the God side, and he would relish telling the story, and we as children, he gave us such a great joy. You can imagine that it is 36 plus 8, 44 years, hence also I still remember the story given by Vedji at that time. So obviously when a teacher gives you that kind of a joy, you remember. So that gentleman who was a teacher was later on said, well, get going, you go into the dining room. And mother gave him that place. Not that in the beginning also he was in the dining room, but he was given a few classes in the school and the higher course, but subsequently his work became so much that he had to leave the classes. That's fine. But what I mean is, the circumstances have to be accepted as the best for your inner growth. Today the mother is not there in the physical, fine. But sometimes in her own grace, with invisible hands, she puts you in the circumstance which is best for you. So it is not just question of, surrendering to your fate, because in India we'll say, oh, everything is karma, because of karma I'm doing that. But I tell you cannot be so easily accepting your karma. If you can consciously accept it, it is a great step in life, because you are surrendering to your deeper being. So it is this kind of an inner surrender which is of great importance. So Sri Aurobindo is writing that you have to accept as an environment and occasion for that development. It's a world of mutual help and struggle. Not a serene and peaceful gliding through easy joys is the progress it allows us. But every step has to be gained by heroic effort and through a clash of opposing forces. Well, there's a little more. I think I would take a break at this point. We'll resume after this short break.